What's up, sports bettors? I got some plays on Underdog Fantasy, 3 picks for you on Underdog Fantasy, 3 player props, 2 NBA, 1 MLB, and I say this in every video, but really the purpose of these videos is, one, I'm just showing you guys what I'm putting my own money on, so hopefully showing you guys profitable bets that you can tail, but another purpose of these videos is to really educate you on how to find value on these platforms, like PrizePicks and Underdog Fantasy. So what you're going to notice about Underdog compared to PrizePicks, and it's a big difference, right? It really matters as a sharp bettor in terms of your long-term ROI, is for 3 pick entries on PrizePicks, you're always going to be getting a 5x payout. So in other words, any 3 picks you select, you're betting 1 to win 5. PrizePicks, any 3 pick power play, any 3 picks you select, you're betting 1 to win 5. It's a 5x payout. Whereas on Underdog Fantasy, any 3 picks you select, so I just selected 3 random ones right here, any 3 picks you select, you're getting a 6x payout. You're betting 1 to win 6. So a 6x payout versus a 5x payout, it really matters long term, right, in terms of your ROI. So one reason, to sign up for Underdog Fantasy is they're giving you better payouts on these 3 pick entries compared to PrizePicks. PrizePicks is ripping you off. They're only giving you a 5x payout. Underdog giving you a 6x payout, right? So that's one reason, one benefit, one difference between PrizePicks and Underdog. Now another difference is they set lines independently, right? So you're going to see Kevin Love's line is 8 points on PrizePicks, right? Every other sportsbook had Kevin Love's line at like 7.5 or 8 points. And you're going to see right here a profitable play from the OddsJam fantasy screen. So fantasy screen, this is one of the tools I use to find value on Underdog, is they have Kevin Love at 8.5 points, right? So PrizePicks has his line at 8. Underdog Fantasy has his line at 8.5, so they set lines differently from one another, right? On PrizePicks, they have his line at 8. On Underdog Fantasy, they have his line at 8.5 points, right? So these books set lines independently. So the value for Kevin Love in the Heat Bucks game is on the under 8.5 points, right? You'd obviously rather play under 8.5 as opposed to under 8, right? Because if Kevin Love has exactly 8 points and you take under 8 on PrizePicks, you're going to push. If you take under 8.5 on Underdog Fantasy, this play from the fantasy screen, you're going to win, right? So I've explained this before, but on Underdog Fantasy, to be profitable, playing 3 picks, all you have to do is win over 55% of your plays, right? So all you're looking for is player props that are winning at a rate above 55%. That's how you're profitable on Underdog Fantasy. So if you're winning 60% of your player props playing 3 pick entries, your ROI is going to be 39 or 29.6%. So basically, if you can select your over-unders correctly, right? If you can select over-unders just like this correctly 60% of the time, your ROI is going to be 29.6%. Really good, right? Whereas if you're only hitting your picks, let's say 52% of the time, you're winning 52% of your bets on Underdog Fantasy, just like this one, you're losing 48%, your ROI is going to be horrible, negative 15.6%. So all you're looking for on Underdog Fantasy is player props that are winning over 55% of the time. And the OddsJam fantasy screen shows you that, right? All these bets in green, David Roddy under 5.5 points, Kevin Love under 8.5 points, Brian Anderson under half of a single. These are 3 player props that are winning, over 55% of the time. So they're going to be profitable in an Underdog Fantasy entry. And it's really that simple. And how do sportsbooks determine this? Well, all we're looking at is the sportsbook odds, right? So if you look at Kevin Love, under 8.5 points is minus 140 on DraftKings. If you look at Brian Anderson, his over-under for singles, all the sportsbooks, right? So I'm just looking at player singles on DraftKings. All the sportsbooks have Brian Anderson a lot more likely to go under, right, to not have a single as opposed to having a single. All the sportsbooks have his under heavily juiced, right? So because Underdog Fantasy is a platform where they're not changing your payout based on you selecting overs or unders, you're always getting the 6x payout. All you want to do is you want to find spots, just like this Brian Anderson, right? DraftKings, all the sportsbooks have his under half of a single, him to not get a single as the heavily favored outcome. So all you want to find is spots where sportsbooks have an under or an over really heavily favored. So today I'm going with 3 unders for Brian Anderson. All the sportsbooks have him to not get a single, really heavily favored. Caesars has this as a minus 150, so a lot more likely to go under as opposed to over. For Kevin Love, right? So if we switch over to NBA player props, so we'll go here, and then we'll go to player points, and then if we look up Love, so you're going to see DraftKings, right? They have Kevin Love a lot more likely to go under 8.5 points. They have lines. The market is heavily favored towards Love going under, so that's a great player prop to include in your Underdog entry, because Underdog is not, they're not changing your payout based on you selecting overs or unders. Any 3 picks, you're getting the 6x payout. So you really just want to find spots where sportsbooks have an under or an over really heavily favored. And in this case, I'm just following the value. These aren't exactly the hottest players. It's not Aaron Judge, LeBron James, but this is where the value is. And I'm always showing you guys what I'm putting my own money on, where I'm finding value. So I just took these 3 plays from the fantasy screen: Roddy under 8.5 points, Love under 8.5 points, Anderson under half of a single, following the data, following value, using the OddsJam fantasy screen, which is just, pulling in millions of odds from sportsbooks to show you those spots where sportsbooks have an under or an over really heavily favored. In this case, they have 3 unders really heavily favored: Love points, Roddy points, and Anderson under half of a single. So those are the 3 plays I went with on Underdog Fantasy. Definitely a platform worth getting, a lot of value on it. I say this a lot. Sometimes there's more value on PrizePicks. I'll have more bets on PrizePicks. Sometimes there's more value on Underdog. I'll have more player prop picks on Underdog. So hopefully this video was helpful. I'll include this spreadsheet breaking down the math behind Underdog Fantasy in the description. Let's make some money.